Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Orange Frog Fly By Night podcast. This is Andy Greatrex, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Kim Tufnell. Hello, Kim. Why don't you mention to listeners some of the positive things that you've been working on this week?
Well, hey, Andy. We've been putting in a lot of work with editing and finishing up our Spark acronym Orange Frog Classroom School Program. So that's brought a lot of interesting things. Do you remember every single time we'd open it up, we'd see another edit that we'd have to do. So it's been a lot of work, but it's such a labor of love. And just knowing that our Orange Frog schools are going back to work and school, like it's August 2nd. I can't even believe it. And some of them are already in school. So I'm excited to get that out to people. And then I was grateful I got to get out on the water for a little bit, ran into Spark and Bull here, took a picture and thought I'd use it for a backdrop. So what you been up to?
I have been working with you this week on the Spark acronym and getting ready. August is our busy month with lots of schools going back. And so getting ready for a month-long worth of travel and workshops.
Great. Well, I know we have a really exciting guest today, and I know you've known her for quite some time. So I'm excited to meet her too. So why don't you introduce her to the listeners?
Absolutely. Thanks, Kim. Well, I am really excited to introduce our incredibly talented guest today. And just in time for National Health Centers Week, Joey Marie Horton. So, Kim, how's this for some experience? Joey was 28 when she became the Chief Executive Officer of North Country Family Health Centers, or NOCO, as we all affectionately call it, and notably one of the youngest healthcare CEOs in the nation. When she took the job, the organization was just days away from closing due to significant financial issues. In fact, NOCO's board announced it was closing on the Friday of the week she started. How's that for onboarding?
Oh gosh, right.
She was pulled in as the interim CEO, and in collaboration with local hospital and a regional health planning organization, together they're able to keep the doors open. And since then, she's guided NOCO to annual profitability and received perfect scores, not on 2, but 3 HRSA, which is the Health Resources and Service Administration operational site visits. Like many health centers and organizations in the industry, by the spring of 2021, Joey and the management team was seeing signs of unprecedented burnout of staff. The NOCO staff was exhausted, efficacy diminished, and the prevailing talk was about what was negative within the organization, as well as everyone else in the outside world. That's when Joey decided to incorporate Shawn Achor's Happiness Advantage and Orange Frog to the organization as staff began returning from remote work. With a series of strategic interventions, NOCO saw a dramatic impact under Joey's leadership. How's this, Kim? Ability to embrace change improved by 26.5%. Burnout dropped by 23.5%, and optimism improved by 28.9%. And so I'm delighted to introduce to our listeners Joey Marie Horton. And Joey, welcome to the Fly By Night podcast. We need to learn more about how you did all of that.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for the great introduction. It's always so nice to see you, Andy, and get to meet you virtually, Kim. So I'm really excited to be with you guys today. Thanks for having me.
Well, and I think there's one more stat, I guess, that I would like to add too, is that Joey was instrumental in introducing the Orange Frog and spreading the orange to our friends at the Arc Jefferson St. Lawrence. Victoria Peck and Abby Dwyer are, as we speak, implementing their 3rd Orange Frog workshop. So thank you for being such a champion, Joey. And
that's awesome. I love that it's growing in our community, and we were thrilled to be the first community health center in the country to implement this work. So, now there's multiple community health centers. And so it's such a great time. Next week will be National Health Center Week. So, to know that this movement's spreading across the country is pretty awesome. I love that.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for your work that you're doing. So Joey, what practices or habits cultivate happiness in your life?
So great question. I mean, I love that Shawn's Achor's work focuses on social connection. So to me, those social connections in my life bring me immense happiness. So I'm very blessed to have a wonderful husband and 2 children that, make me laugh and bring a smile to my face every day. I have amazing parents that live close by and have, such a profound kind of role in not only my life, but my kids' lives too. And, being grateful that they're still healthy and here with us is really important to me. But also women friendships, I think, is really critical as a female leader. Having female friends that can support you when things get tough and someone that you can go to and count on is really important, as well as the people that you work with every day and making sure that you have those social connections with them. So when you're having a challenging day and things are tough, you've got people in your corner. So as a leader, I really feel it's important to take the time and to invest in those social relationships and connections. And I think sometimes that's really hard because the to-do list is so big and thinking like, oh, do I have time for this 5-minute chit chat? But, I really see it as an important commitment to how I lead, with our organization and for me personally, for my own personal happiness too.
Well, that's great. Can you share with us maybe an example of how you implemented some positive psychology principles into a challenge and then suddenly there was a positive outcome that you didn't even expect?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think starting with a good mindset is really important because working in healthcare, I don't know that there's a day that goes by that doesn't bring some new challenge. So I think you have to be prepared every day for a challenging situation, or not a day that goes by that you're like, didn't think that would happen. So I, love out of the happiness advantage work, exercise is one of the techniques to improve positivity and happiness. And for me, starting the day with exercise, before the workday starts is a really key component of being in the right mind space to go into a challenging workday. And I think, not only is it a great way to start the day because you also accomplish something by like 6 a.m. It's like you've got the workout done and you're feeling like you can get anything done that day. So I always start my work days like that. And then gratitudes is really important to me. And I really didn't focus on gratitudes until I started the work with the happiness advantage. And, whether that's just think about what you're grateful for at the end of the day or using, an app and writing those down. Is something that I think that even in the midst of a challenging situation, there's still a lot of good. And sometimes I work with awesome people that believe in the same mission and, we can do it together, even though it's a really tough situation. Or like that was a gorgeous sunset. And, even though the day wasn't so great, I got to see the beauty of nature. So I think that really focusing on gratitudes and exercise are like 2 of the big techniques that I use every day to get through a challenging healthcare world.
And I like that you said, even at the end of the day, and we like to call it ending on a win. So there could be so many things that are going awry, right, all day long. But then if you can find that one thing that you can end on a win with the day, that's so important.
Exactly. I even do it with my kids. So at the end of the day, like, what are your 3 good things? And I started it when my son really had a tough year in school and he complained about everything. And I'm like, there must have been something good today. And, it's also a great way to learn what your kids did each day and what they find was like the highlight of their day. Sometimes it surprises you, right?
Oh, absolutely. So how can listeners incorporate similar practices into their own lives?
So, as a leader, I think as I mentioned, those social connections are so important to me. And, I think that investing and taking the time to develop social connections with those that you work with is really important. So one thing, that I've learned is like, if you put it on your calendar, you're much more likely to get it done. So we actually, as a leadership team, every Tuesday have a set lunch meeting. There's no work talk at the lunch meeting. It's just, bring your own lunch and chit chat about personal things. And I think that's a great way for the team to stay connected, to connect with each other, build those relationships, which, helps to build trust. And, when you're working through challenging things, you have that solid foundation. The other one that I love that we are doing more because, we live in Northern New York. So much of the year is not great weather, but right now it's great weather. So we are doing walking meetings and those are actually, I do one once a week with my COO and primary care director. And it's a great way to not only get some exercise in, but, chit chat and support each other and make sure that, we're all on the same page in terms of communicating. And I think it prevents us from multitasking too, which can often happen in our work world.
Mhm.
So, not only working on your social connection with each other, but working on your exercise and making sure that you're fully present in the moment with those that you're with are two really great techniques. And again, you put them on your Outlook calendar, I feel like you're way more likely to do them. So.
And I've been hearing so much more about these walking meetings. And I love that you said that you're not multitasking, because when you're multitasking in your meeting, it's like you're not really present. So I
Right,
really
exactly.
appreciate that. I think that those are some really good examples that our listeners can take away from that. So thanks for that.
So, Joey, we have a section called If You're a Fly on the Wall. And I'm really interested for our listeners, if they were a fly on the wall, how would they see how the Happiness Advantage Orange Frog training changed the people at NOCO and your culture?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that for us, we had focused on culture prior to Happiness Advantage, but what the Happiness Advantage did for us is really changed our mindset to be one that is always positive and committing each other as leaders to being positive. But what I love about Happiness Advantage is it's based on scientific data. So all of the research and the data that Shawn highlights from his work and the work of colleagues was so critical for us as a healthcare organization. We work with physicians and nurse practitioners and social workers. These are people that want to see the data. They want to see the research. And I love that we had that for them. So I think that our work on culture, we had a good foundation, but because of the Happiness Advantage work, we really could propel it forward because it was based on facts and science. And, I think that was really important for us. Our previous culture had so many similarities. When I saw Shawn present actually with another healthcare system called Genesis Health out of Iowa, I was so excited because I thought, I don't have to change anything. I just have the data to prove why we're doing what we're doing, and I can augment what we're doing. So for us, our previous culture focused on recognizing good things and enjoying your work. I've always had that belief that if you love what you do and you come to work loving what you do, like your patients and who are our customers, are going to notice that. So just like in a school system, if a teacher loves teaching, their students are going to know it and feel it. If my provider loves coming to work, my patients are more likely to follow their treatment plan. And so for us, I think that the data that proved, yeah, this really does make sense, really propelled our culture forward. And I think, the other thing too, is it gave us amazing techniques that were pretty easy to follow and to implement within our organization that allowed us to really define, what are our main things as employees of the organization and as leaders. For our leadership team, we kind of came up with a motto that's like, this isn't extra work, this is how we work. And we really do, see it as woven into just like how we lead and how we bring on new employees and how we train employees, how you deal with tough situations with employees, coming at it with more of a positive mindset, how you motivate people. So, I think that after we went through this training, we had the base of the culture, but it really propelled it forward. It defined it for us really well, which I think is really critical. And I think our leadership team committed in an entirely different way to leading with a positive mindset that we really didn't have prior to Happiness Advantage. So I think that made a big difference. So I think if you're a fly on the wall, you would definitely see a noticeable change, especially with our leadership team.
I remember you and I were driving from having a meeting with Shawn to College Station to talk to another healthcare group. And we were talking about leadership. And one of the things he said that had impacted the leadership effectiveness that you had was that you realized that the leaders create the conditions for this work to be embedded. And also there's a role for each of the individuals, within the organization to do fun stuff and to implement it into their own work. So could you talk to us a little bit about how this has impacted your leadership effectiveness and how you've created the conditions for others to shine?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that to make this work sustainable, you really need a three-prong approach. So I think I remember sharing that with you before. My three-prong approach is that leadership commitment has to be first. And that's that top-down approach. Like leaders have to buy in and they have to be committed. And I can talk about that more later, but the second part is the bottom-up approach, where employees are empowered to figure out what makes them happy, what brings positivity to their life. You know, what do they want to do in their workday that's going to bring them more joy, and giving them the freedom to, do what meets their needs. Because not everybody is going to be the super social extroverted one. Some people might want to do more of introverted, like writing gratitudes, and it doesn't mean that, they're not participating in the culture the same way. So giving people the freedom. And then the third is that HR aspect of like making sure your policies and your procedures match your culture, your code of conduct, how you hire, that kind of thing. But in terms of, for that approach, more focusing on that leadership aspect and effectiveness, I think too often leaders think that this is fluff. Like, I don't have time for this, happiness stuff. I got to get stuff done. And I think that is what is so critically different about myself and our organization and our leaders, is that we completely believe that it's because of our positive mindset and because of our attitude and because of our culture that allows us to be more effective. And I think that, focusing on your own wellness is okay to do. I think as leaders, you kind of think like, I just got to work all these extra hours. I got to put it all in. I don't have time to meet with people and connect with people. And I think they have it all wrong. And I think the research proves that too, of focusing on your personal wellness and connecting with people, does make a big difference. And I think you have to lead by example too, right? So when our staff, in that second prong, or the bottom up approach, where they come up with the fun ideas, if your staff comes up with a fun idea for the whole organization, as a leader, you're going to participate and you're going to enjoy it. One of an example for us is Spirit Days. I really don't like Halloween and dressing up. It's never been my thing, but I always participate in Spirit Days, and whatever theme it is and whatever they decide, it's like, I'm going to participate because it was their idea. And, I want to show that I support them. So, making sure that I'm always leading by example is really important. And I think for leadership effectiveness, it's not just, the initial happiness training. It's continually developing as a leader and learning new things and training. Like this podcast is a great example of taking advantage of, new things that are out there to learn, new techniques. And our leadership team actually does a learning zone that is throughout the entire year. We meet every 2 weeks. We read a book, or we listen to podcasts together, and, focus as a team on leadership effectiveness. It's not one and done. It's kind of, always how we work, which I think is, really important to sustain this level of work.
Right.
So Andy, can I ask a question real quick? Because there were two things that jumped at me, Joey, that you had said. First, investing in, your staff and investing in your own wellness. Mm-hmm. And as we go forward and do this work, I'm starting to hear a lot of buzz around, oh gosh, the hot topic is, don't say in organizations that I've been in, don't use the term self-care. And then some people feel like, that's now a trigger word. And then they think, and I love what you said about, experiencing it on your own terms. If you're an introvert, you do the gratitudes, whatever. But then there's this toxic positivity that I constantly am hearing too, that people kind of, I think, are conflating the same, you know what I mean? Saying, well, this is just toxic positivity. Can you address like how it's not? I mean, I know we're talking about this is science-based, but the self-care trigger word, and how is this not toxic positivity?
Absolutely. I think Shawn has a great, I don't know if it was a webinar or a podcast that he did on toxic positivity. And, he said like, there's no such thing as bad positivity. It's like, there's always good positivity. But I think for us, like I've addressed that with my staff, and it is not saying that bad things will not happen at our organization or that we won't have tough days. It's that we are intentional in being very focused on setting our mindset and our behaviors and our culture on what's good in the day and what good things happen and what can we control. And I think in a world that, is often uncertain and, scary for people, especially operating during the pandemic, we didn't have control of so many things. But we could say to our staff, but we can control how we think about those scary things that are happening around us. We can control our behaviors and how much attention we focus on the negative versus the positive. So, when staff say to me, like, all you focus on is the positive, I'm like, no, you're empowered to come up with a solution for the things that aren't working. I love that. But it does mean that we are very intentional in focusing on the things we can control. So, your mindset, your thoughts, your behaviors are things that you do have control over. And I think that is one for sure that we've heard, from staff before. And I think that, the wellness aspect is, we know that with our patients in healthcare, that you can't just focus on, your physical health. You also have to focus on your mental health. You have to focus on your oral health as well. And that makes, you as a person whole. And that is being patient-centered. And that's how we treat our patients in a healthcare organization. So I think it's, perfectly appropriate to focus on our employees as whole people. So they're, here when they're in our office, they're employees, but they also have a whole life behind them too. And, giving them the tools to focus on mindset and thoughts and behaviors, I think is really one of the benefits of Happiness Advantage.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Sorry, Andy, I interrupted you.
No. So Joey, one of the things that I know, having worked in healthcare myself for a number of years, is healthcare workers are like, oh, I can't have another thing on my plate. And one of the things we talk about is, how do you embed these positive habits into the work routines in an organization? And I know you have countless examples, but we always get asked, how do we start? How do we embed these positive habits into our work routines? And I wondered whether you could give us a few examples that have worked for NOCO.
Sure, absolutely. So I think gratitudes is a really simple one. So we start every meeting with 3 good things. So I think that's a great way, set the tone for the meeting, put people in a good positive mindset. And often if somebody forgets, we hold each other accountable, like, oh, you started the meeting and you didn't do the 3 good things. But I think that that's important, because a lot of times too, staff will share personal good things, and that goes back to the social connection. So I think, as a leader, it seems really simple, 3 good things before you start a meeting, but you're really getting to many of the techniques of Happiness Advantage. Gratitudes is another one in terms of recognizing employees that we really embed into our culture. So we utilize, different technology platforms that make recognizing people super easy. And, I think that as an employee, when you feel appreciated and you feel like somebody witnessed, the good things that you're doing, it makes you more motivated in your day too. So we utilize technology tools to make it really easy for employees. We even have, like, some people don't want to use technology and want to use paper. We have, little baskets in each area with, like, orange Post-it notes where you can write a gratitude to somebody as well. And then we do a lot of team building, like fun team building. So all of our departments for staff meetings do team building to start the meeting. Whether that's like silly questions, or, we have like an orange and white ball that has questions on it. They throw at people and they answer, so I think that, just incorporating, like, we're always going to have a bit of fun or a bit of positivity before we do the work, makes it, a really easy thing to continue. And then we also recognize employees personally. So we do birthday cards for everybody, and congratulations card if somebody got engaged or had a new baby. Those come out from the leadership team. And I do personal work anniversary cards for every single employee too. So that's just something that, you put in, like, that's just part of that's how we do our work here. And, it's a task that we always do. And so those are, some examples of what we do at the health center.
I love that. And then how do you, because I know we have listeners who are like, okay, that's great, and we're going to start out, and it feels like sometimes when you start to implement something new, right, it's okay, we do it 3 weeks, and then we do it 4 weeks, and then it just kind of trails off.
Mm-hmm.
How can our listeners, what can they implement, or how do you sustain a program like this, and how does it catch on? We talk about when we do the 21-day action plan, right, that 21 days to cultivate a new habit. How in an organization like yours do you sustain this, and this just becomes the way we do business? And I think I heard a little bit of it. It's that holding each other accountable. But if you could speak to that a little bit, You know,
Yeah,
how
absolutely. I
is it
think
simple?
simple, right? Keep it simple. And I think
Yeah.
we learned that because when we first started, like we went all out. We had a staff employee culture committee and they came up with, tons of awesome ideas, but a lot of those were like a lot of work to manage and to track. And, I think over time, now that we're, 3-4 years in now, it's like, how do we keep it simple so that we can sustain it and make it routine? So simple, low cost, like starting a meeting. That's a simple, free thing to do, right? Utilizing technology tools that allow you to send recognition, super simple and easy. Doesn't have to be elaborate, that kind of thing. Or, as a leader, buy a box of thank you or gratitude cards and keep them on your desk. And then you look at them and you're like, oh, who can I appreciate and send some kind of gratitude to this week? And I think those are like really simple things. But we also made it routine so that people are always constantly, kind of reminded of what our culture is. So we actually created every day of the week is something for the health center, which may seem overwhelming to some, but I think because it's routine, it is easy to remember. And, different people have a responsibility in each of them. So Monday is Motivation Monday, and one of our leadership team members is assigned a month. We do it a year in advance. We use, technology reminders so that everyone remembers, and they send out, a motivational message or a question or a story, a video every Monday. Great way for your staff to not only hear from the leadership team, but also to be like motivated for the week of we've got this, right? Tuesdays, we highlight employees, a couple employees, every employee within our organization when they start. And, obviously when we started this, every current employee did it as well, has a PowerPoint slide with personal photos in it. And, it says like, what do I do at NoCo? But like, why do I love working at NoCo? And then what brings me joy? Like, what's my best day ever? And I think that's a great way for people to meet each other. We have multiple sites across 2 counties. We have a lot of employees, and it's a great way for people to learn, about other fellow colleagues. Wednesday, we do Wacky Wednesday. That's when our spirit days are. They send out silly jokes. Thursday is a good things email. So I have sent out I started this before Happiness Advantage, an email highlighting good things in the week, personal and professional. And because it's routine, like staff email me every single week of, I got engaged, or my son won the hockey tournament this week, or I want to highlight, this nurse because she went above and beyond for a patient. So it's not only a great way to have staff recognize, each other, but share why we do the work we do and, how we do impact patients in the community. And then Friday is Fun Friday. So we encourage people to wear orange, and, we have a lot of NoCo branded gear, and, staff can wear jeans, and that's a routine of it's okay to have fun. And, even though we do really serious work, it's okay to have a good fun Friday. So, making it part of our routine, which, Monday through Friday might be too much for some, but I think simple and routine is the way to sustain it.
Agreed. So what has been the most meaningful or the most impactful change that you've seen in the organization?
I think that implementing Happiness Advantage during the pandemic for us was, pretty significant. Being in healthcare, working during a global pandemic where there was a ton of uncertainty. It was very scary for staff. I mean, we were worried about their health and safety and, worried about our patients. So I think that for us, seeing that burnout was able to reduce during such a challenging time was probably the most, profound result from our work with Happiness Advantage. And I think that level of optimism that, even though this is a really tough time, we're going to get through it together, and we're going to, be a stronger team because of it, I think was just more profound because we implemented this work during the pandemic. And it's kind of crazy that looking back on it, I think a lot of us would say there was so much positive that came out of it. And, it really made us stronger together. And I also think that the workforce in healthcare has changed since the pandemic. And we're seeing, people left healthcare altogether, went into different industries, and turnover was higher across healthcare industry than it was in years past. And I think we really started to think maybe that's an opportunity. Maybe it's an opportunity to bring in new individuals that we focus less on their clinical skills and more on their attitude and their level of optimism and their change agility and things that we really didn't focus on when we recruited people previously. And now that's a huge component of how we bring people into the organization. So, I really think that for us, we took a really challenging time and like made the best of it and really thought like, how can we turn this into a good thing for us? And, I think that we've seen day to day how that has made, a difference across all of our departments.
Right. And then even something like that was so, I don't want to use the term catastrophic, but still for some, it really was that it really helped to reinforce, everyone's understanding of happiness. And we have this saying, when we do the workshops, it's the small things that make the big difference. And when
Absolutely.
you can start implementing those things, and then it just becomes reinforced and being able to get through that as a team and say, holy cow, we came together, because of that, I think that's just incredibly impactful. So
and taking the time to recognize that, right?
Right.
We did make it through it together and we are stronger now because of it. And I think sometimes, you fail to take the time to actually recognize what you went through.
Okay, so Joey, we have a question from a listener, and specifically the question was, what type of things did you start with at NOCO to systemically implement the Orange Frog Happiness Advantage once you'd been through the workshops and understood Shawn's principles and tactics? And I know, for example, one of the things that you looked at was the Brilliantly Orange initiative. Could you explain a little bit, where do you start?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that making your culture easy to remember is really important, and defining, what are the expectations of your culture is really important. So we, had a culture, as I had mentioned before, that we previously defined as Be Brilliant, and it focused on the acronym RESPECT. And once we went through happiness training, we changed that to Brilliantly Orange and the Orange Frog theme. And we continued to use the same acronym, but we kind of highlighted all of the positive psychology practices, in that acronym. So for us, respect means recognize is the R. That's like recognizing all the good in the day and starting the 3 good things in meetings and, defining that for employees, having the gratitude cards available, that kind of thing. The E is enjoy. So making employees understand that you can enjoy yourself when you're at work. You can have fun. Like, I want to hear laughter in the hallways. I don't see that as people not working. I see that as people working in our culture, which I think is awesome. And, making sure people know that they are empowered to create an environment that they enjoy. The S is steadfast. So for us, we're, a mission-driven healthcare organization. So putting patients first and making sure we're committed to that is also, really important. And then the P in respect is passion. And I also feel like in healthcare, if we want patients to follow our wellness and treatment plans, like we got to be passionate when we tell them about it, right? And be engaged, and they're more likely to come back, if we're passionate about what we do. As well as a leader, I think people want to follow passionate leaders, right? And, making sure that you create that environment that allows people to be passionate about what they do. The E is empowered. So, focusing on letting people have control of their work environment and, be empowered to create fix things if they see something's wrong, and be empowered to create a more fun environment if you think it can be. The C for us is celebrate, focusing on, celebrating personal milestones, professional milestones. We love food in healthcare. I'm sure a lot of industries do
Everywhere.
as well, but any excuse for like a cake or cupcakes anytime we can. And then the T in respect is team, and really focusing on teamwork. So, for us, using an acronym really allowed us to make it easy for staff to understand what our culture is. When we bring new employees on, they learn about the RESPECT acronym. It's on the back of everybody's name badge as well, so they can quickly, look at it. We also made, because it's Brilliantly Orange, and we use orange as a color of positivity within our organization, there's a lot of orange everywhere, and we're intentional in making it visible. It's a good reminder for people of the culture. We just actually completed a new wing to our main campus building, and I painted the entire hallway orange, which some of my providers were like, what color are you going to paint the hallway? But it's a beautiful color orange, and it looks perfect with gray. But I think that's another example of like, there's a constant reminder every day that orange is our culture. And, so I love that kind of stuff. We are actually working on slowly changing. We have a yellow star in our logo, and we're slowly changing the logos over to the orange star as well. So, I mean, making sure it's visible and people are able to, see it every day, I think is really important. We have signs like in our bathrooms about our culture. People use the bathroom every day. It's a great place as they're washing their hands, so what's our culture and what are you allowed to do here? Like you're allowed to have fun and those kind of things. So making it visible, I think is, a great technique that allowed us to sustain it as well.
So we talk a lot in the Happiness Advantage that the happiness, being happy, being optimistic is an advantage. Is there any example that you could provide that really solidifies that says, yes, it's absolutely an advantage to have an optimistic outlook, to be happy?
Absolutely. So, I mean, as we mentioned before, as Andy mentioned, we did do scientific research when we implemented our Happiness Advantage training the first time. So we actually had data before, during, and after. So that was great to actually prove that it did, change optimism and burnout and change agility. So we have that from the beginning. But we've also had our highest employee satisfaction scores since 2020. They've increased year after year. And, I'm really proud of that. I think that, though it may not be scientific research, we've used the same actual questions since I started over 10 years ago. So to have that history, I think is great to see the change there. And we also do leadership surveys, anonymous surveys of all of our leaders within the organization. And we started this a couple of years ago, really focusing on, knowing that leaders are so critical to culture and to sustainment of this work, and making sure that all of our leaders are leading within their department in the way that embraces our culture, and using some data to back that up. So I'm so proud of our staff. We had 88% of our staff participate in the anonymous survey, which is great participation, and 97% of the questions, which there were about 20 questions, were strongly agree that the person was an effective leader. So it went from the culture questions to like communication, for example. So that's amazing. Those are amazing results. So to have our leaders, recognized by their staff, I think that proves that the work that we're doing on culture, and also specifically focusing on leadership development and training of our leaders, so that this wasn't a one and done. This is a constant leadership training. I think proves that this is definitely, working for us for sure.
Thank you for that. I mean, and I thank you for like all of the examples that you provided. I can see some of our listeners going, oh, that's a good one. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that. So thanks for that.
So Joey, we like to finish on a big question. And the one that strikes me that I really want to ask you is, what actually most surprised you about introducing happiness to NOCO?
Well, that's a good one. I think it's simple. I think that surprised me the most. Like it really is easy to do it. If you commit, you can do this. This isn't super complicated leadership skills, right? This is like focus on the positive and like create an environment that people are going to want to be around you and work in your organization. And I think it's simple. You can do it. It's not hard. So I think that kind of surprised me. The other one is, I'm always surprised at how many leaders just still, as I mentioned before, like think that this is just nonsense or extra work. And you're like, you guys are missing out. Like this is our strategic advantage over you, And I think that it still surprises me that people are like, what are you doing with this happiness stuff? And I'm like, yeah, we're making a huge difference at our organization. You guys are missing out. So I think the other one too, I would say is, I think staff desperately wanted an environment where they felt like they could be open to express themselves and be who they are. And I think some work environments, as we had mentioned, you have more introverts, more extroverts. Some work environments, extroverts that are like super outwardly positive may feel a little stifled. And I think I was surprised when we started focusing on this, how many people came up to me after and said, like, this is amazing. Like, thank you so much. Like, I'm so glad we do this now. Like, I even got a thank you card from a new employee after her orientation week of like, I cannot believe I get to work here. Thank you so much. And, you know, I'm so excited to work in this environment. So that always kind of surprises me too, that it's pretty unique, right? Not everybody focuses on this kind of stuff.
Well, Joey, I wanted to thank you for not only your time today in your very, very busy schedule, but also for being an ambassador for this work and be so willing to share it with other organizations, both in the healthcare industry, your local community, which everyone's benefiting from, but also to us as well. We really appreciate everything you have done and continue to do.
Yes,
Awesome.
for
Thank you.
sure.
It was
Thank
such
you
a
for joining.
privilege to be with you guys today.